So hello everyone, thank you and welcome to this second tutorial on how to create CakePHP, an application with CakePHP. In this tutorial, we'll be building out the user authentication system with CakePHP, and it's simple and easy. Just a couple of steps that you don't really have to memorize, but initially just know the steps, and then you have a place you can make reference to see the steps. And then we'll set up our user authentication system, a very powerful and secure user authentication system in CakePHP. So what we'll do first of all is we have to create a database. Normally you just head over to your database management system like PHPMyAdmin or MySQL Workbench, and then you have this. Head over to your database and start creating tables. You can do that normally, but I want to teach you how to create migrations. Migrations is you actually specify the column and table names and field names on a file, and then you run a command on your command line. That file will create this database. It's important because so that you can backtrack changes in the database. If you accidentally create something that you don't want, you can backtrack it using your repository subversioning system, alright, like Git. You understand? You can use Git to backtrack on a file and then run the migration again, and then there you are. So, and also if you're working with people, you can. It's very important to use migrations against creating it directly from the database. I know many of you coming from Cake 2 would like to create these tables directly from the database. You can do that, and nothing will happen. But if you're working with people and you want to keep track of database changes, you have to create migrations. So in this file, in this video, we'll be creating migrations. So first of all, to create migrations, you have to actually enable it in your Cake, in your config bootstrap file. So we'll open my Cake project, a fresh Cake project we created in the past video. And if you've not taken my video on how to create a Cake project, you should go and take it. It's in this playlist. You should be able to see that. So we'll head over to our Cake project, which we call Cake blog, and then we'll head over to our config folder, and then we're looking for a file called bootstrap.php. I double click it to open in my text editor. So this is where you basically load all the plugins that works with your app. So we're going to load the migrations to make sure it works. I'll just click and paste this. So we're just basically telling it load the migrations plugin so we can start using it on the command line. So the next thing we'll do is actually to create migrations from our command line. Alright, there we are. So we run this command. We say bin cake bake migrations create products. So we are going to create a users table on our database. So we hit enter, and of course we have to do a magic to get to this bin. And that magic is that we have to navigate. I've not seen this in the documentations, but it's simple. You have to navigate into the bin folder. What you normally see in the documentation is bin cake, you understand, and what you have to actually do is to navigate into this bin folder, then remove the bin and / and then run cake bake migrations create users. It creates your migrations for you. So in any case you ever have these errors, I'm making sure that I do this normally so that I'll get the errors and fix them so that you see how it's getting done. Alright, so once this migration is created, we can then go into our migrations folder and locate this file and start adding migrations from it. Another thing you can do, which is very, very unique to CakePHP, is that you can create migrations directly from the command line, and it's amazing. It's just amazing instead of going to the file and creating it. So we see it both ways as we create two tables so that you understand how it's being done. Alright, so we will go there, and this is running and creating our migrations. And of course, anytime your command line hangs in any application you're designing, just type any keys on your keyboard on the command line, any alphabet keys. For me, I just typed like this, and then your command line will just wake up and create the file. So it's telling us where this file is created. It's inside our Cake blog config migrations, and then we're going to locate this file. As you can see, it's created with date 2017, blah blah blah, so that you can track when the file was created. All right. So we can head right into our folder, go to Cake, go to config, and we're seeing a folder called migrations. So you head over to migrations and we'll see create users migration. So we'll open it in a text editor and start doing some magic. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we can head over to the documentation, which is exactly what I'm going to do now, and go and copy a sample migration file and edit it. All right. So I will copy this and head over to this place and use it to replace this. So the name of the table we're creating is users. So So we'll create a users table, and then the next thing we're going to do is the users table should have name, alright, should have description, cool, should have created, modified, but what we can have is email. Our email is text, and what we can have is password. Our password is text, and there are many other settings you can do here. Of course, you can come to the migrations this way. Just get to the Cake documentation and locate migrations. Alright, so look at it right here, migration. Alright, so from then on, what we can do is continue creating our migration, but I want you to know that you just have to read through this and see a whole lot of things you can do with migrations on Cake. So, but we'll quickly and create all the tables we need in our users column. And what else do we need? City. We need the city, we need the state. Or let's just put address. And it's a text, and let us put about. About us, it's a text, like a text area. But then apart from that, the other thing we have to observe is that address is actually a string, which is just like a text box. And then you have password. Your password is a string, not a big text area. Cake makes sure that you do this well. If you miss these things in Cake, when it's automatically generating your view pages, it will generate it with the wrong elements. All right. So email is supposed to be string, name string, email string, and what we can do is actually have we can have a first name instead of just name. We can have first name, we can have middle name, and we can have last name. Last name. Alright, then the other things we need to check out in the columns is that are they going to be nullable? So these guys can be nullable, middle name can be nullable when they are, so we can say true. Yeah, it can be null. And then the email cannot be null, the last name can be null, the password can be null, and Cake automatically creates this last two for you, which is created the time that you're creating the record and modified the time the record was modified. Alright, apart from that, our migrations is complete. This is Cake migrations table. And like I told you, you can create this straight from the command line as we see in the next video. So, but here we have the Cake migrations table, and the next thing we will do is we will run our migrations, okay? So we're actually going to run our migrations, and then when we run it, it will create a table here. So we will get back to a command line. Make sure you're in your bin folder. Okay, we'll write Cake migrations, migrate, and hit enter. And guess what? It starts migrating whatever we have in our migrations. And the other thing I want to tell you about CakePHP is that CakePHP migrations goes either way. For instance, if you already have your database and you want to start using migrations, CakePHP can go to your database, pull your database, convert them into migrations, and that is amazing. And then you can also do what we're doing now, which is create the migrations first and get them into your database. All right. So we've run our migrations, and it has done a migration on just one user file. So if you get back to the database and click on our database name, microservice, and so the problem we have is that if we get here, we'll see that nothing was created here. So obviously there was a problem somewhere, and the problem is that we didn't connect CakePHP to our database. So let's just verify that our database was properly connected to CakePHP. So we will get back and see in the database file config app. So we'll scroll down and just verify that CakePHP is in our database, and then we'll figure out why our migrations didn't run. Alright, so I'm opening this in a text editor, and our app, this is where you can manually set up your database. So we'll scroll down to our database setup, and there we are. We'll look for it, and data sources. Okay, so it's set up correctly. And the problem we had was that we were pointing to a different database. As you can see, this is the database that we had, and I mistakenly pointed to a different database. So this is what we were looking for. So we navigate to the correct database. So you can see that our migrations actually was successful. Cake automatically created this for us, and then the next thing is that it created a users table. And of course, we didn't see these migrations in CakePHP. You can see it, which means create dummy data, that every time you run your migrations, it will create those dummy data, right? So we didn't do that. So if you click on browse, it should be an empty table. So CakePHP does this. So another thing we would have done is to actually have a database in place. We create a database from here, then we go to CakePHP and run a simple command that creates the rest. For me personally, I prefer to create my database from phpMyAdmin and then run a command on my command line, and CakePHP will create the migrations for you. So any other thing I want to update and the migrations, I'll do it from my database. I'll do it from my migrations. So it's easy for me to click around here and create new files. So here we're going to create a courses table, and we're going to call it 4 fields. First of all, it's going to have the ID field, it's going to have the name of the course or course title, then it's going to have a description of the course, and it's going to have a created, when the course was created, and it's going to have, let's add more fields. Let's say we're adding 3 more fields. So these guys will be the last. So it's going to have the cost of the price cost. Yes, it's going to have the cost, and the cost is going to be double, and we're going to set it to 10,2. That is 10,2. So we're going to have a created here. We're going to have a modified. 10,2 means that you can have 10 numbers before the decimal and 2 after. Alright, so the next thing our course can have is active or status. So the active, or we can just put status. The status will be like, we use a tiny int, and the size will be 1. So because our status can be 0 or 1, I prefer to call this active. So if it's set to 1, then it's active. Then I'll set the default to 1. The course is active immediately it's created. So we will go to our description and set it to text. And once it's text, we don't need to put anything here. We set to varchar, and once it's varchar, we can say 255. That's the length of characters anybody can type in. And then this we can say 11. And we don't need to put anything here as long as we can select it as date time. So we'll select this guy as date time, and the same thing with modified, we'll select it as date time. Alright, so we have this, and the next thing we are looking at is to make sure that this line is null. So we'll get it as null, not null, sorry. We will auto increment it, so I'll pen to the right so that we can auto increment. So I will slide this a little. So we can say that this is our primary key, and yes, and then we have a primary key, and we can auto increment. So it's on auto incremented. That is our ID key. And the next thing we can look for is the nullable fields. The cost, what could be the initial cost? For me, I can just put the initial cost to 00. And what else? We will have this cost description can be null initially, but then you must put a course title. And then we forgot to put a link to the users table, so we can say let us add a new field and call it user ID. So let's see what we have here. we call it user ID. So because we need to know the user that is creating this, is going to be integer, is going to be 11, and it cannot be null. Alright, and there we go. So we create this course, it says save. As you can see, it has been saved. We have this. So we're going to run the code in here to actually create the migrations for it. And in our command line, CakePHP is powerful with that. Here we go. We're going to run Cake to create a migration from our database, tables we already have in our database. So it's going to be Cake migrations initial. So once we run this, CakePHP will automatically create our migrations. First of all, we have to fix this. So this has to be capital letter migration snapshots, just to be sure that we got it. So it's going to bake it. Cake bake migration snapshots initial. So there we are, and we hit enter and see what happens. You know, we've initially created snapshot migrations from our code, and now we are trying to pull them from the database. So we will hit enter and see what happens. Isn't this amazing? So we get back to our migrations folder in config migrations and see how many migrations it now has. So as you can see, it has created an initial migrations for us. So it's just amazing what CakePHP can do. It can create a migration from an already existing table, or you can create your migrations directly from your files. So in the next tutorial, we'll be diving deeper into creating migrations from command line, and we'll create a user authentication system in the next video tutorial. So thank you very much. See you in the next video.